I just came back from the protest. A fellow named Darian was there who put together the protest, kind of short notice, because on the 4th of July there was a gal who was handcuffed by from what I understand, by a traffic cop, and then she was dragged while handcuffed on a pretty hot asphalt road. So anyway, he was there for that, but also because a good friend of his was apparently shot in the back while running away from Tempe cops a couple years ago. The 2-year anniversary is coming up on July 27th, and there's going to be a pretty big protest at Tempe Beach Park for that. There wasn't a lot of people there today because it was short notice. I wanted to make a point of being there because about a year ago, almost today, was I was a victim myself of a very similar thing. They're out of control. They got a thing called qualified immunity, which means they can set the bar pretty high on what they can get away with, and they keep pushing that bar higher and higher, and it turns into dead citizens. It turns into people dying, suffering unnecessarily. I was unconscious when they made first contact with me. First contact was to grab my head violently. Then they did it again. Then they dragged me out of a car, dropped me on my rear, almost broke my tailbone. Still unconscious. When I first started to move, beat me, kicked me, tased me, slammed my head into a curb. Woke up in the hospital. They told me I just had a CAT scan to make sure I didn't have permanent brain damage. The doctor was sewing my ear together when I woke up. They were really, really rough with the guy who was unconscious. And nobody there at the scene, I don't know how many, it was probably 5 or 10 cops at the scene. Nobody tried to stop him. Nobody even turned him in afterwards for doing the wrong thing. I think they all ought to be held accountable, be it civilly, criminally, lose their jobs, whatever. They need to pay, or else they're going to keep doing it, and they're going to keep upping the stakes. You know, it's probably not until some cop accidentally does this to another cop's daughter or son that things are going to start to change. He's going to go, oh wow, I shouldn't have done it to that guy. I didn't know he was that guy. Well, hey, I'm that guy. I got the same rights as anybody else, right?
So do you want to go into your story, or?
You can see it on YouTube. Go to YouTube. Okay. On my channel, it's called Share the Footage.
Share the Footage.
Share the Footage. You'll see my video there. About 18 minutes long. I narrated because I got the body cam footage. You can see exactly what happened. When it first happened, and I have no memory of it because taser can screw with your memory. Head injury from an accident can screw with your memory. I don't remember the actual attack. So when I woke up in the hospital, I thought all this happened from a car accident, or most of it anyway. And it wasn't until I saw the police report and I said, whoa, they roughed me up a little bit. But then when I saw the video, I said, oh my God, all my injuries came from these guys after they found me unconscious. I cried when I saw the video because I saw what they did to me in that condition. Talk about an act of cowardice. One had me by the hair, one had me by the arm, and the other was just having a field day on me. There's so many stories like this. Some are more extreme than others. There's a cop that was sentenced to 263 years in prison. Maybe you've heard of that, maybe not. Apparently he was using his badge as authority to intimidate and rape a bunch of women. And, you know, I don't know why in that case they decided to go ahead and prosecute and try him criminally, etc. But they ought to do it more often. Qualified immunity is an excuse for them to get away with more than they should be able to. I understand that if they're up against somebody dangerous, they need to have the upper hand.
Yeah.
And need to be able to take down a threat. An unconscious guy laying on the ground moaning is not a threat that requires 3 officers to beat the hell out of somebody and almost execute them right on the street. And I think it's surprising to see them do that with their body cams rolling. I think a lot of them aren't used to the body cams. I think they're a fairly new thing in some departments. And maybe a lot of them would...
You have Daniel Shaver. Did you watch any of the footage of that?
I watched the story, and of course I was sickened by it. It wasn't until, after this happened to me that I saw it in a different light. But it wasn't until I didn't realize on YouTube they actually show some footage where they show it all the way through to the end. And when I saw that, man, that was haunting.
Did you notice? Like when they were coming out of the elevator and Philip Brailsford was like, this is like Call of Duty, like he was all hyping himself up.
I didn't see that part of it, but I'm not surprised. It's like they're on steroids or something, a big power trip. And I heard a veteran cop analyze that whole thing, and he said it was the sergeant that was in charge and barking the commands that was really at fault.
Yep.
He was yelling confusing commands, getting everybody pumped up. The other guy turned the other guy into a trigger finger. And so they charge him, and he gets acquitted, and the other guy faded off. You know what he did? He retired quietly, left the state, and that's it. And justice, people. We just want justice.
Exactly.
Cops act like they want justice. That's why they arrest and harass people and attack people, whatever. But it needs to be fair for everybody.
Yeah.
It can be fair for everybody. It doesn't only need to be fair for the cops and let them get away with whatever they want. They can't get away with whatever they want. Sometimes they do, though. And thankfully there's people out there trying to put a stop to it. Are you familiar with Leon Valley?
I've heard the name.
You haven't been following Leon Valley?
No.
Okay. A few weeks ago, a guy goes into the police station and was harassed or tased or something. Oh, that's right. He was doing a First Amendment audit, public area of the police department. And he wandered in this one room where there's a woman, and she said, "Hi, what's going on?" He says, "Oh, I'm just filming, just doing a story." And he says, "What's behind these doors?" And she goes, "Oh, go ahead." So he goes behind these doors that are unlocked. He met the police chief. "You can't be here." Basically threw him on the ground, attacked him. I don't know if he got tased, but he got beat, he got arrested, etc. And that's when a lot of auditors showed up and started regularly showing up at this place. Well, pretty recently, the chief of police called a press conference. He gather in all you activists, gather around. We're going to have a press conference. We're going to have a press conference, and so I want you all to gather. As soon as they gathered around, you're all under arrest. So he arrested them all, took their cameras, took their phones. After he let them all go, apparently they all got a letter in the mail saying, "You can have your cameras and your phones back now if you'll sign something saying you won't sue us." To me, that sounds like extortion, but I'm not an attorney.
Yeah.
And on the 4th of July, an attorney on behalf of 10 or 12 plaintiffs involved in that particular scenario in Leon Valley filed something like 250 charges against the Leon Valley Police Department, the city, or the mayor or something. So that's a big deal. Look at that. Finally, ABC in that area in San Antonio did a little story on it. It's going to turn into a bigger story, I think, because that's a big deal. That city, I think, is about to have to pay out hundreds of millions of dollars for what they did. And the city manager just today or yesterday came out, and her response, or his or her response to it was, "Well, that's why we got insurance. We got insurance that'll pay for it." As if it's no big deal to do what was done.